Welcome into another edition of the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni, who is on the road down in College Station for Texas A&M opening fall camp, which took place on Wednesday night. The team hit the practice field for the first time. Brian, how's everything going? We're going to dive into everything with fall camp and obviously the big recruiting weekend. But how's the latest trip down to College Station?
Oh, it's nice, man. It's just nice because football's back. And I think the first day of practice was exactly 1 month until the start of the season, at least the start of A&M season. We're going to get some football the week before. I mean, you got Notre Dame playing in Ireland and some other games. So we're getting close. So that's what I'm most excited about. We got to see players hit the field on Wednesday. So, there's some football to talk about. I like that.
There's a ton of buzz. Yeah, we can kind of get away from all the off season projections and guys getting put on preseason lists and all that stuff, and actually talk about practice and really dive into things. And there was some news on Wednesday out there. Daryl Dickey was working with the tight ends. Had previously been the offensive coordinator and QB coach. Damian Craig, who had been working with the wide receivers, was now working with the quarterbacks, and James Coley, who had been working with the tight ends, was now working with the receivers. What did you make of that whole kind of change? And I know they all have experience kind of at those positions in the past, which was the first thing that kind of jumped out to me. But seeing them in action, all three of them, what'd you kind of make of that?
I think it all makes sense, to be honest. I mean, Damian Craig has been the wide receiver coach since Jimbo arrived in College Station, but he was an All SEC quarterback at Auburn in college, so he definitely knows what he's doing. And as a quarterback coach, James Coley at receiver now, he has coached receivers before. Daryl Dickey at tight end, he's coached that before. It's just a little weird having your OC, as the tight end coach in Dickey, but I mean, Jimbo Fisher has always called his own plays and always will. So, I don't think it's really that big a deal that now Dickey's with the tight ends, and I'm sure if quarterbacks need something, he's there, and these guys can look back at their other positions. But I like the moves. I like all three of them. It'll be interesting to see Coley recruit wide receivers now because he's done a great job recruiting tight ends. He's known as a recruiter, from his time as Georgia, from his time everywhere else. Miami really wanted to steal him this offseason, and a big reason was his recruiting prowess, especially in South Florida. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Obviously, on field is the biggest news of it, but since A&M recruits positionally, that's going to be really interesting.
And there's obviously a couple targets down in that area that they're recruiting in this cycle that James Coley's been involved with. Obviously, Hakeem Williams is the first one that comes to mind, and so that's going to be the other interesting part is kind of what effect this has. With A&M has been in the mix with a lot of those South Florida receivers, and obviously you mentioned James Coley has those ties. As for Daryl Dickey, the first thing that kind of came to mind for me is I think this also gets him more involved. He's very much being behind the scenes. We mentioned Jimbo Fisher works a lot with the quarterbacks and
Yeah.
calls the plays and all that. And so I think getting Daryl Dickey involved with tight ends, he knows the game. Obviously, he's been around the game for a long, long time. And so, I think that's going to be a pretty smooth transition. And, I don't think you'll see a major drop off at that position. And for Damian Craig, he goes back to a position that had a lot of success in college, and so I think it could end up working out on all fronts and puts people kind of in positions where they're comfortable. But it is going to be interesting to watch James Coley and working with the wide receivers and just what that does to wide receiver recruiting as well, and where A&M kind of targets. Speaking of the tight ends, I know that was kind of everybody's big takeaway from day one was Theodore Mellon Ostrom came in at 255, I believe, and as a freshman, and certainly is built really, really well. And the tight ends overall on day one seemed to really be the group that everybody was excited about. What takeaways did you kind of have getting around as many position groups as you could in the short window that you were out there?
Yeah, no, for sure. Tight ends. I mean, that was the one position I really wanted to see, other than obviously defensive linemen with all the 5 stars coming in. But tight ends, I mean, they went last year in that class from planning on taking to one guy. I mean, Donovan Green was the guy. Then Theo Orstrom reclassified. He graduated a year early. And then, after Max Johnson left LSU, Jake Johnson had decommitted from LSU, was not planning to go there anymore. And, just the family called up A&M. Hey, what if our boys end up in Aggie land? So they took Jake Johnson, who was ranked the number 1 tight end in the nation in the class. They took him. He made an announcement on the first day of the early signing period. So, they went from planning to take 1 to taking 3, and then you had Baylor Cupp leave in the offseason. So it actually turned out to be a great thing that they did that. It's going to be hard to keep any of these guys, these 3. Obviously Max Wright's there and has he's a guy that has experience and he, blocks and just does everything right. You got a couple other guys in Blake Smith and Fernando Garza, but it's going to be really hard to keep those 3 freshmen off the field. Wouldn't be a shock just because he has the experience from the spring if Jake Johnson ended up, as a starter early. But, Theo Orstrom looked really, really good. Now, obviously, we've talked about it on here before. His, the only time in pads he's played is in Sweden against, guys, he's not playing against D1 guys or anything. So, that's going to be a huge adjustment, going from that to the SEC. Donovan Green, though, he played at Dickinson, a Class 6A school. Jalen Weidemeyer had done the same thing, made the transition and played early. So I think Donovan Green can do that. So, yeah, these guys, all 3 have a chance to be really, really good. And, it's a good problem to have, but I don't envy Dickey and having to decide playing time there at that group.
There's no doubt. And with Jake Johnson, especially, just so natural in everything that he seems to do, kind of a natural pass catcher and just really fluid running routes. And, it's and same, I've always kind of felt that with Donovan Green, that just seems to be really fluid and has experience. One of the jumps that a lot of guys have to make when they come to college is, the blocking, getting up to speed of the blocking and as a receiver. But at Dickinson, Donovan Green was asked to do both of those. And so it feels like he's kind of up to speed and has a leg up in that front. And so it's going to be really interesting. And, I know Max Wright and Blake Smith and Fernando Garza are certainly going to be pushing for playing time as well. And, I agree, though. It's going to be hard to keep any of those 3 off the field. And there's a reason that they were brought in and thought so highly of. All 3 were in the top 10 of the rankings in the tight ends for the 2022 class. And so, you've added 3 guys that can provide immediate impact. And it's gonna be a fun battle to watch over the next couple of weeks. And when I know everybody is keeping a close eye on the quarterback position as well, with Max Johnson, Haynes King, and Connor Wigman. That battle really starts to ramp up now over the next couple of weeks. And Jimbo Fisher on Wednesday during his press conference said there's no timetable to name a starter. He kind of has an idea in mind, but he's not going to say that. Of
course,
come on,
yeah, we've learned from him. He is going to name. He may not even name one. They're just going to trot somebody out. Now it'll leak. It'll leak for sure. But I mean, think back to the Kellen Mond deal. I think we broke that news the week before Kellen Mond's first game in Jimbo's first season, but Jimbo still didn't announce that and just trotted out Mond. So it said no time, but because he's not going to announce it. You don't want to give you don't want to give Sam Houston a leg up and knowing which quarterback to prepare for. So.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, I think he said, like, I have a timetable, but I'm not going to tell you what my timetable is. And,
okay.
Yeah. He, so, kind of played it out exactly how you'd expect. And also, was kind of asked about it. He definitely was not tipping his hand about any way he's leaning. Was asked about, are there specific characteristics you're looking for in your quarterback?
Yeah, he said, I want one that's fast. Oh, who's that going to be? I want a guy who's got SEC starts. Oh, who's that? Yeah, so he's not going to give anything.
In Jimbo Fisher fashion, said all 3 bring different skill sets to the table, and that's what the quarterback position brings. And so, he mentioned kind of the generic things: decision making, accuracy, timing. Things that you would normally think about. But yeah, he's not gonna tip his hand one way or another. But I think it
That's
does.
shocking that he
Yeah,
just,
shocking. That was the
you
biggest
know,
news of the day
yeah,
was that he
yeah,
didn't have much to say. But I think the one theme, and Anaya Smith mentioned this as well um, during his presser, that the competition overall around the group, especially from some of the younger players that have come in already from this 2022 class, have really pushed the upperclassmen as well. And I think we've kind of seen that with guys like Evan Stewart making an immediate
yeah.
impression and being able to step in. And the secondaries is another position that's going to be fun to watch because there's guys coming back from injury, Brian Georges, the Miles Jones. You've got Tariq Chappelle who really came on the second half of last year. You got Jalen Jones. There's just a whole bunch of guys that are in there. Antonio Johnson and Bryce Anderson and Deuce Harmon are all kind of battling in there as well. And so the competition in the secondary is going to be really, really fun to watch. And I think that's exactly what Jimbo Fisher kind of wanted, and those thoughts have been echoed by players over the course of the last couple of days as well during press conferences.
No, for sure. You're talking about the secondary, and that's going to be. But going back to, you mentioned Anaya Smith, so the receiver group. I mean, that's got,
Yeah.
Anais is going to play. He'll get plenty of playing time. But Chase Lane has a ton of experience. But even just the first day, when you see Evan Stewart out there, which I mean, if Evan Stewart doesn't come out as the starter against Sam Houston, I think we'd all be shocked. But then you see Noah Thomas and Chris Marshall, and it's just those guys, just do things and look different than anything A&M has on campus with their size and speed and athleticism. So, yeah, that's another position that those, Chase Lane and Hezekiah Jones is now retired, medically retired, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But those older guys are really going to have to watch that. But yeah, so defensive back, I mean, Antonio Johnson is going to play as much as
Yeah,
they can have him play. I mean, he's, projected
exactly.
as a first round pick, All American for a reason. After and it seems like it might be hard to keep Jordan Gilbert off, but who knows? What if Bryce Anderson comes on really strong or any of the
Yeah.
other guys? But and Damani Richardson, he's been there. But yeah, I mean, I think it really is pretty open. I mean, let's say Smoke Bowie just has a great camp, or like I said, Bryce Anderson at safety, or
Denver Harris.
Denver Harris, yeah, with him being healthy this year, coming on. Just yeah, it's not out of the question that some of those veterans start seeing their playing time decrease, and it's frustrating for them, I'm sure, if that does happen. But it's a great problem for A&M to have. You always want the young guys to get experience
Mhm.
if they're, you don't want to have to put them in, but if they
Yeah.
earn their way in, that's a different story. And so if, let's just say, for example, if Jalen Jones is beaten out by one of the younger guys, or beaten out for some playing time at least, that means those guys have really, because Jalen Jones is a great player, already a 2-year
Yeah.
starter, was a 5-star, but that means those guys have made a huge impact already, and that's another just great problem to have. It's not, you don't have to throw them out there to the wolves. So that means that they've truly proven that they belong and can play early.
Yeah, and if A&M learned anything over the past couple of years, the depth that you need to get through an SEC season. Just look at what happened to the secondary last year of losing two starting corners and kind of guys that had to be thrust into roles early on. The more guys that you can have that you can be able to turn to, especially younger players, and get them up to speed, the better, because you never know when you're going to need them or when injuries start to rack up. It can take two games for injuries to start to pile up, and suddenly you're in a hole. So the more guys you can get up to speed right now, the better, and kind of go from there. And I think it was Jimbo Fisher that said yesterday that competition avoids any complacency setting in, and I think that's certainly true, and kind of a theme that makes a lot of sense. And so and the other position that I think there are some battles going on is along the offensive line, and kind of where things go. And we've talked about it before, but seeing Jordan Spasovich Moko line up with the first team ones at guard is I think a noteworthy development, and goes to what we continue to talk about in just 1 year in the program, and kind of where he's made strides and picked up his picked up the game of football, especially at this level, is a great sign for A&M, and a guy that can be really impactful in the run game. It was just more a question of, in the pass game, where can he pick everything up? Can he pick blitzes and stunts up? But to me, that's a great development to have him up to speed and ready to go.
Oh no, for sure. We just got done talking about all this depth everywhere. The one place, that I think depth is a concern is offensive line. And
Yeah,
luckily offensive line isn't like other positions. They don't rotate, very much. Usually if everybody's healthy, they play the entire game. So, that's, a good thing. But yeah, you really do need, there's a lot of experience coming back, but you do need somebody to step up for that second guard spot opposite Layden Robinson. And yeah, Moko, another guy, we talked about Theo Orstrom, but I mean, just doesn't have experience at this level of football. He last, I'm not sure he ever even suited up at Snow College, or if he
yeah, I
did,
don't
it
think
was, a
so with
couple
the
games.
coach.
But yeah, so his last time he suited up was for the Brisbane Rhinos, this, a local team in Brisbane, Australia. So, and again, not playing against D1 competition. So yeah, if he's ready to go, I mean, he's strong as an ox. He's really athletic. I mean, when they were recruiting him, he would put up videos of him doing just like ridiculous
Ridiculous.
things that even small guys couldn't do. So I mean, he's got those tools. So yeah, if they think he's ready to go, that's a big storyline because the rest of the line, I know Trey Zune obviously doesn't have the playing experience, but looked great in the spring, and all reviews are that he's looking really good at tackle. So it really just it's that one spot, that one guard spot, and if he can do that, and if he can lock it down, that means that he's another guy that's earned it, and like I said, he's got the tools. So that'll be fun to watch.
No doubt. And, noteworthy, Jimbo Fisher mentioned in his press conference that Trey Zune's working his way back from COVID. So, I know there was a lot of concern about, him not being out there yesterday. And Jimbo Fisher did mention some guys are kind of coming back out of that protocol. So no concern there. Just got to work him back into the fold. But you mentioned, yeah, he's expected to be kind of the left tackle. And Aki Agunbi was working over there yesterday, and I think that's kind of noteworthy just in terms of him, having experience playing inside and playing outside, and they really need to be able to develop some tackle depth. And so if he's a guy that can play, as kind of a swing guy, and him and Blake Trainer kind of feel like the two guys who would be off the bench or first call in, and will be relied upon at some point this year. And so the fact that he was getting some experience at tackle in fall camp, to me, is not a bad thing at all. And you see what you have there.
Yeah, I mean, fall camp is long. Trey Zune will be back. He'll be plenty healthy by the time the season starts. So, yeah. So I mean, I know some people were a little worried with Aki out there, but Aki's a good player. What happened with him
Yeah.
though is he was a big dude in high school. 330
Yep.
or so. Run heavy offense. Their senior year, Kempner completed fewer than 10 passes his senior year. I mean, all they did was run. So he's a mauler. But what happened when he got to A&M is was working on losing weight. He lost too much weight. You don't see that
Yeah.
happen, but that happened. Well, now he's back up to what they would prefer to have him at, and he's he's not a bad option at tackle. I don't think you probably want him as your starting tackle. If he's in your starting lineup, you want him a guard, but he's not a bad guy to have in there. If something does happen, if Zune goes down or Father goes down, he can step in. There really aren't. I mean, Blake Trainer, did that last year. He came in, struggled a bit. So there really just aren't that many options at tackle. Like we said, the depth is the issue there. So, get him work there. It's not a bad thing, and it's just camp. I mean, people.
Yeah.
It's not even just camp. It's just one day, the very
It's
first
one
day of
day.
camp. I mean, I don't believe Blake Trainer was even out there, so who knows if he would have
Nope.
been in front of him. So I mean, I don't know who fans exactly wanted there at tackle if they were, if they were complaining that Aki was out there. I mean, there's just A&M really needs to add some tackle to their spot. I mean, would they rather have him or Hunter Erb, a true freshman who just showed up and who might
Right.
end up at tackle, might end up a guard? I mean, I think they'd probably freak out more if there was a true freshman in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's, way too early to calm down, guys. Calm down. I saw
Yeah.
the
Calm
overreaction.
down.
Yeah,
We're
it'll be
gonna.
fine.
We don't need to make another appearance on the board. Doesn't
Message
need to
board
make another
geniuses.
message board geniuses freaking
Oh
out on day
yeah.
one of camp. But you mentioned kind of the depth. Luke Williams, I think, was in there as the second string right tackle. And so there was some guys still missing, and just going through the roster was obviously released yesterday, and one thing that was kind of a great sign for me was PJ Williams already being up to 285 pounds. We mentioned he was a guy that was going to have to basically take a year to add some
Hey, you know
weight.
how we just told people to calm down on Aki? Remember how we were telling people to calm down on who were freaking out about PJ's weight in high school? I mean, PJ
Yeah.
played his sophomore year at 225. It was his first year to ever play offensive line, and he added, more, but played his senior year at 255. I mean, I think both of us just kept preaching, hey, he's going to add weight. Like, you would
Yeah.
much rather him be 255 now with his frame than to be 320 and then have to
Yeah.
completely reshape it. So calm down.
Yeah, we'll get to another thing too that we kind of told people to calm down and ended up playing right. We're gonna take a quick break and come back and talk a little Texas A&M recruiting, which is really picked up over the past few weeks, and they're coming off a big weekend and looking to add to it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back into the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni. Brian, speaking of panic level being high, about a month ago, it feels like at this time we were kind of trying to remind people to kind of stay patient, and A&M was going to find their groove on the recruiting trail at some point later this summer, and the pool party was going to be kind of a big momentum boost, and it played out almost exactly that way. A&M lands a huge commitment from Anthony Hill on the Saturday around noon just to kind of kick off the pool party. Some guys were already in town. Dalton Brooks commits later that day, and then add their first commitment from Dylan Evans a day later, and Samu Tamun Pepe.
You know what?
Gonna
I
need to work
that
on that
nailed
one.
it. Nailed it. I
Nailed
mean,
it.
I don't know. I've never actually asked him to say his name, but those
Yeah.
Polynesian names, a lot of times you just pronounce every
Oh,
vowel and you're probably going to be right. So
I kind of had the spelling it out here just
yeah, we'll
to
just go
see if I can.
Samu.
That's the
If we
first time that's
that
the
yeah.
Samu is the way we're going, but that's the first time I've said it. So, and then obviously the big news about Malachi Nelson coming in for a visit, but just starting with Anthony Hill, because I think that was really the huge news. You and I had kind of mentioned a couple weeks ago that this felt like kind of a line in the sand type of recruitment. He was down to A&M in Texas, and for A&M to get him, you could immediately see him start going to work on a guy like Darren Gillette, another guy, TJ Shanahan. He was recruiting him. It's a huge addition for Tyler Santucci, just in terms of adding a guy of his caliber to the linebacker room, and that position kind of needing that sort of jolt. Um, it's it's a huge deal, and probably the shot in the arm that this recruiting class really needed. What do you think this could mean for A&M going forward, heading into the fall now?
Yeah, so I don't think A&M, I'm trying to think. I mean, back in the history, I'm not sure A&M has ever signed a five-star linebacker. Obviously, they had Harold Perkins committed last year, and he switched to LSU. Justin Warren, I don't remember if he was five stars coming out of high school. He might have been, but no matter what, Anthony Hill is the highest linebacker they've ever. I don't see him going anywhere. So, going to be the highest linebacker they ever signed. So as a player, it's huge, but bigger than that is the momentum. Like people, if you don't think Jimbo Fisher and that staff, like they do things for a reason. I mean, so I remember LSU fans on Saturday were just like, some were like, that's way too many people to have on campus, for that pool party, and then another person like, saying it for LSU, there, we've never had anything close to on campus at one time as that list, that
Yeah.
A&M has. I mean, there were 7 or 8 5 stars, a ton of national top 100 people. And Anthony Hill commits at noon. There are kids starting to arrive on campus then, but the event doesn't even start till 5:30. He commits at noon. We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming at noon, and yeah, that was, and what happened? I mean, social media, it exploded. All these kids kids, are just like, man, what's going on at A&M? And then you had, the coaches and support staff and all that just tweeting about momentum and hinting at future commits. Like, yeah, that got the ball rolling. I think, Dalton Brooks, we talked about him several times. He's real quiet, doesn't do interviews, not because he's, he just wants to be quiet. He just wants to go about his business and play on the field. But I think it helped. He's been on the verge of committing for a long time, but I think it really helped get him, just wrapped up in the excitement and was like, all right, let's get this over with. Let's do it. Dylan Evans, same thing. I mean, he was in town since, the entire weekend. Got caught in that. Then I think, this coming weekend, you'll probably, we're going to see an announcement from Nikhil Betrand, and it looks good for A&M. TJ Shanahan's a guy that could announce soon. Probably A&M's top overall offensive line target.
Yep.
So so momentum, from all those guys there, and then all the, a ton of 24 guys. A&M's not going to take a ton of guys that early, but a bunch of 24 guys are really loving A&M. So I think the Hill deal obviously is huge for on the field. I mean, he can play all three spots, but he's just a Mike linebacker and can loves hitting and can cover. But it really is just that momentum. People say, "Oh, the top linebacker in the country is now committed there." Oh, look at all these guys on campus. Like, I want in. I want
to play with that guy.
Yeah, so that was like I said, huge head-to-head win over Texas. People on our board, on all the A&M boards, were just as you said, like calming down. They were, worried when Texas got that momentum after Arch Manning, and landed. They landed Malik Muhammad and Jonte Cook were two of the guys that A&M was heavily after. They're like, oh, is A&M ever going to get a commit again? Like, Jimbo Fisher, has he lost his touch? No.
Are they going to finish in the top 60?
Yeah, A&M likes closing. Like, that's what they do. Yeah. But also, you just need a shot in the arm, and Anthony Hill did that. So great player and great for momentum.
Yeah, just a fantastic athlete too. I mean, he was basically Denton Ryan's second best running back last year as well. I mean, they had him on kind of sharing the load in the running back room because he's the second best option they have, and just the way he moves for his size, it's just phenomenal. And adding Chase Basantis too. That's 3 top 100 kids that A&M's added in the past few weeks, and just like that, up to number 33 in the recruiting rankings as of Thursday. So up close.
And that's
to
with 9 commits. And
9 commits.
Okay, we've already we're not an anti-Tyler White podcast. We love Tyler White, but his ranking is not going to add a ton. So really, that's with 8 with 8 position players committed. They're up there. Everybody else up there has well into double digits. So the fact that A&M has 5 national top 100 guys is really impressive with how small the class is so far.
And Steve Wilfong kind of pointed this out, and I think this is the bigger number to look at is A&M, as of this past weekend, had the second highest average ranking per commit, which speaks to the quality of kids that they're
and that's
landing.
That's with a punter,
That's with
once again, we love Tyler White, but that's with the punter, dragging the average down a bit. So yeah.
Yep. Oh man, if we ever try to get Tyler White on that,
no, Tyler, we talked to him. Tyler White, he's big Gig'em 247 fan. We're big fans. We're big fans. He's the number 1 ranked punter in the country. We saw with Braden Mann, punters are people too. They're very important, but they're just not going to have the same. They're not going to have the same rankings. So yeah,
I'll be out at some of Tyler's games. So he will. We'll have plenty from him this year. And you mentioned some of the decisions coming up this week. Darren Gillette's the first one coming up on Friday afternoon. And, I think this is one of those decisions where everybody's kind of, craving to kind of know where he's going to go ahead of time. And I think it's gotten really close with him between Texas and Texas A&M. If you would have asked me last month, and, talking to people around his recruitment, Texas held the advantage. There's no doubt about that, coming off of the momentum and getting him in on the final week of July. But A&M's just really, really picked away at that recruitment. And the question is, have they done enough? And I think the good news for A&M is, and kind of a hidden piece of good news, is he didn't use his official visit this past weekend. So even if A&M were to lose out on this recruitment to Texas, they still have the official visit kind of in the back pocket to be able to try to push to get him back on campus this fall. But I think it is kind of a toss up, and it doesn't hurt that A&M was able to get him back on campus. Um, the final weekend before the dead period, and he did a Zoom call with the staff on Wednesday, and so I think he's a really thoughtful kid that's just trying to kind of figure out where he wants to go. He's really high on both schools. And it's a tough decision, and I think that's really where things stand as of Thursday morning. And for him, and he'll announce his decision on Friday afternoon, and I would think he'll take much of today to kind of figure out where he wants to go and where he wants to announce.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's actually, fans, obviously they want to know where's he going. This isn't like it was 10 years ago where kids, you do have some kids really surprised. But I don't think even schools know, where he's going. He's down to A&M, Texas, and Ohio State. I think it's fair to say it'll be one of the in-state schools. It's
Yeah.
not likely to be Ohio State, but I don't think even A&M or Texas know just yet. And that's, which, it's like, why is he, why is he doing the commitment now? But I think he just sort of wants to get it out of the way, and also, just both classes are sort of filling up, so also make sure he's got a spot in the class. So, but we're working on that. We're working on you and I are both working a bunch of sources and people that info on that. So come to the boards. We'll have more. But yeah, that's one that if A&M does that, then they're pretty much done at the linebacker spot. I mean, they would take. They'll take an elite guy, but that'd be three. They love Anthony Hill. They love Damian Sanford. They love Darren Gillette. So they would be really happy with that haul.
Kind of would be a dream linebacker class for them, and in terms of exactly how they wanted to fit in. Darren Gillette and Anthony Hill were kind of have been the top two targets for quite a while. And then obviously the big news of the weekend as well was A&M getting longtime USC commit Malachi Nelson in on a visit. For me, I was asked on a podcast earlier this week, is A&M going to be able to flip him? And I think A&M, ideally, looking at the way they've tried to handle these things in the past, is they just got him. They got him on campus for a multi-day visit, which was huge. Getting him in town for the pool party, and skipping a USC recruiting event that was going on the same weekend shows you that there's genuine interest there on his part. It's going to be tough to flip a kid out of California, just down the road from USC, that has been connected to Lincoln Riley specifically for so long. But
yeah, he was committed. If fans don't know, he was committed to Oklahoma, with Riley. So he sort of followed him there to the hometown school. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but just getting him on campus, and you try to get him back on campus in the fall, and kind of try to push this all the way to signing day, and just see if you're able to do it. Is kind of where I see this thing at right now. But there is obviously very genuine interest. It's very real that A&M's in the mix for him, and they're just going to have to keep working behind the scenes and see if it's enough to be able to flip him.
Oh no, for sure. And I mean, A&M being in the SEC and having a ton of eyes and having a huge fan base is going to be big. Now USC has a bunch of fans too, but you just don't see the rabidness, out on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can go to the beach, they can do other things, not a ton else to do in College Station. So, they're going to watch football. There's going to be 100,000 people there in the stands every week. So that's going to help A&M. Nelson, as he should, especially as a quarterback, as a 5-star quarterback, is looking for an opportunity where he can, really take advantage and maximize his name, image, and likeness, his NIL potential. And USC, is a very good program. It's on TV a lot, but again, it's just are the fans rabid enough for that? A&M's in the SEC, and I think he could take advantage of that. So that's what I think A&M, is going to be the big, sort of selling point is, hey, the fan base, the SEC, all that. So I don't expect Malachi Nelson to tip his hand at all until signing day. I mean, he's not doing interviews now, which is not surprising, but I mean, he has not done one since the visit. I don't even know if he's posted on social media since the visit. His season's going on, but he's a guy that A&M will just continue to work on to whittle away, and it's an uphill battle. But it's worth trying, and getting him on campus is huge because I think that's his only other visit he's taken other than USC, and it was a big weekend for USC. He skipped USC's big recruiting weekend to come to A&M. So I mean, there's definitely interest there, and I mean, you'd rather be the school that got him for a visit than any others that are trying to flip him that didn't. So like I said, uphill battle, but A&M's in as good a position as they could hope for.
Yeah, they're in exactly where they want to be, and just continue to work on him behind the scenes. I think this is kind of the way they've always tried to play these sorts of things out. Is maybe you can get him in for the Miami game or get him in for the LSU game down the road, and just continue to kind of plug away. And one of I think a good point that Steve Wiltfong kind of brought up during his Wiltfong whip around on Wednesday night is one of the things Malachi Nelson's kind of looking at is guys like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud that have gone outside of California and gone to Ohio State and Alabama and had success, had NIL deals, and had been able to have success on that front as well. And so that's another thing that he's kind of looking at and at least exploring and looking at his options. Obviously, again, he's been committed to Lincoln Riley for so long, going all the way back to 2021, and so he's just kind of looking at his options and seeing what's on the table. And A&M is a school that has been working on him for quite a while behind the scenes. Just to get him on the visit was pretty huge. And so people asked, and I have to say, speaking of this podcast, quite the prophecy a couple of weeks ago that
we know stuff, man. We
talked about surprise visitors, and last year was Walter Nolan, and you mentioned you went to the prospect list and looked at the number 2 prospect was Malachi Nelson and predicted then that he would be on a visit for the pool party, and it was quite.
Just inside info. At that point, Malachi Nelson, I think it was actually about a month ago, and I don't think that trip definitely wasn't planned. I don't think A&M was even in contact with him then. But yeah, I remember just saying, I bet the number 2 prospect shows up just as a joke. And I was like, let's look and see who it is. But then I think I was like, hey guys, I'm joking. Malachi Nelson's not coming. So I predicted it, but then went ahead and told people it wasn't going to happen. So I probably shouldn't have said that part.
It would have set off the internet firestorm at that.
I just didn't want to let it out of the bag just yet.
Yeah.
A&M has been talking to him for a while, but I think that was before it had really even heated up. But yeah, just sort of funny that 2 years in a row, the number 2 prospect in the country sort of just makes an out of nowhere visit, to A&M. I mean, Walter Nolan had come out with the top 3 or 4 and had not included A&M. Yeah, and then right after the visit, he came out with a new top 2. I think. Like, I think A&M made an impact there. So.
Yeah, you could kind of sense as soon as A&M was in that top 2 and some of the other top 3s were out that A&M had certainly made an impact there. And you mentioned Nikhil Bertrand; he's also coming up on Saturday, and a guy that made it into town this week and has since reopening his recruitment has he's made a couple trips to A&M now, and A&M seems to be the school that sits in a good spot for him heading into Saturday. And would be another big addition to the offensive line class, a big human, as people like to say at this time. And just I think he's going to need some development and need some time, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Is he's kind of a developmental player that you can bring along, but a guy that A&M seems to be in a good spot for.
Yeah, if you want a guy that's raw, you want a 6'7", 310-pound guy that's raw compared to a 6'3", whatever, So, I mean, you look at him; he looks every bit the part. So, I can see why he's got the offers that he does. Interesting. Auburn is actually recruiting him as a defensive lineman. I don't expect him to end up at Auburn, but so shoot, if all else fails, throw him on the defensive side of the ball at some point. But yeah, I mean, he looks like a stereotypical left tackle, just the height, the frame. So would not be a bad addition at all for A&M. Like you said, not a guy that would like to contribute early, but one that would be worth taking a flyer on for sure.
No doubt. And then the other, sticking with the offensive line, Cayden Jones is the guy we talked a lot about, and I think really got to see the top 2. I think the 2 schools that are really standing out for him right now, Florida and Texas A&M, saw them on back-to-back days this week. Went to the Florida Friday night's camp on Friday night, and then came to A&M on Saturday. Yeah, I know, redundancy there. but and mentioned, A&M really continues to make it. And I know he's a legacy, but one of the things that he talked about coming out of this trip is he's kind of built his own relationships now with A&M. He's got his own relationship with Steve Adazio that goes beyond just being a legacy. And so I think that's where A&M really wanted to get to. He got to talk to a lot of the players who raved about getting to work with Steve Adazio and being at A&M and they feel like it's been the right choice for them. And so right now the plan is to get back for official visits at both A&M and Florida this fall, and we'll see about timeline. Right now, he kind of mentioned this, December, late fall, but it wouldn't be a shock to see him make a decision earlier than that. But A&M and Florida continue to kind of be the two schools that seem to be making the biggest impression on him right now.
Yeah, and Florida's recruiting well. It does help with A&M. I mean, his mom went to A&M. His uncle is Marcus Jasmine, who played defensive line for A&M in the early 2000s. So, he's grown up with A&M. I think the first time you saw him, he came in wearing an A&M
Yep.
A&M shirt. He didn't even have an offer at that time, but just at a camp wearing an A&M shirt. So that definitely helps. And I know he likes Florida, but A&M is a little closer to New Orleans and with the ties and. I think he really does like Adazio and likes Jimbo Fisher. So, I would lean towards him ending up in the A&M class. Not a done deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that let's say so. An offensive line class they have who Chase Basantis already in the fold.
Yeah.
Colton Thomason, Nicole Bertrand likely jumps in this weekend. TJ Shanahan is big time guy. Probably ends up in the class before too long. Now again, not done, but probably does. And so the fifth guy could be Cayden Jones. And that 5-man class is pretty
It's
good
a
class.
solid
I mean,
class.
yeah, I mean, you don't have the, immediate like left tackle day one starter. Now
Yeah.
Colton Thomas, and let's see how he does at left tackle, or at tackle as senior, he's playing right tackle, but see how he does it moving out from guard. You don't have that, but you do have two guys in Jones and Bertrand that could end up being, that left tackle type. So yeah, I think that five people would, and they're all versatile. I mean, Basantis plays tackle in high school, Likely plays guard. TJ Shanahan plays tackle in high school, probably moves inside the guard, but he said schools are looking at him all over. So, and then Colton
Yeah.
Thomason played guard last year, moving to tackle. He's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". I don't know. He's tall.
7
But
feet,
yeah,
7'1".
but he's a guy that could play, a number of positions. So you really like that too, just the versatility. So, I mean, there
Yeah.
are definitely worse classes and not many better ones that you can sign.
No doubt. And, I think the thing to remember with this offensive line class is it wasn't like they weren't the Reuben Fotheries and, the Bryce Fosters of
No,
this class that were immediate day one impact type of guys.
no.
There were some guys that you knew were going to kind of be developmental pieces in this sort of class. So not a bad class to be able to put together with guys that have tools, and now you just have to be able to kind of mold those skill sets and go from there. But it's gonna be interesting. I would definitely stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. I don't think A&M is done by any stretch heading into August, and probably has more momentum coming out of this pool party than we kind of expected. Maybe going in, you expected it to kind of be a boost in the arm, but getting Anthony Hill on board, I think you and I tried to keep expectations in reason, and I think we said like 3 to 4 commitments by the start of the season, and it certainly kind of picked up from there. So it'll certainly be interesting to see if A&M continues to build on that. Darren Gillette, again, we'll have more information on the site as it kind of comes in later today, but continue to stay locked in on the Gig'em 24/7 Sports podcast. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel to get a notification every time a new video drops. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify and iTunes. And we'll be back again next week. Just talk a little more about fall camp. There'll be an open practice on Sunday afternoon at, I believe, 4:45, right? Will be the open
So
practice.
gates open at 4:30. They didn't say what time it
Yeah.
actually starts. Yeah, Kyle Field, 4:30, gates open.
Yep. So there'll be a chance for fans to see players in action in fall camp this week, and we'll have plenty more on the recruiting trail as well as A&M continues to try to make inroads there. So with that, everybody have a good rest of your week, and we'll be back next week.